is coming under attack from 4 directions, from the north, east, west, and south. AlJazeera is now under fierce attack. Tanks of al-Qaddafi are coming from all directions. The revolting youth are standing on rooftops. They are fighting, resisting fiercely as well. Heavy artillery bomb, heavy machine guns, without mercy, ruthless fighting and bombardment. Ordinary people are helpless. We are taking refuge in our buildings. Paramedics are also cannot help. We are trying to save the injured and those who have fallen. We are helpless, and we see people lying dead and injured on the ground, and we cannot help them at all. I call on Qaddafi to fear God in his own people and stop killing us. We do not wish any intervention from the international community. We need only air embargo. The international community and the United States are manipulating. They can impose the air embargo so they can deter Qaddafi only.
Let's hear now from 2 of AlJazeera's correspondents in Libya. In a moment, we'll speak with Jackie Rowland in the eastern town of AlJazeera. But first, let's cross to Tony Berkeley, who's just east of there in Benghazi, the seat of this uprising. Tony, we were talking earlier in the day about funerals that have been held there today in Benghazi for those who were killed when this arms dump exploded last night.
Yes, the 13 civil defence volunteers were paraded in the streets here, and there were prayers and condolences given. They're among the 17 people we know of that died in that arms dump. There's some speculation as to what actually happened. They're saying here it could have been a case of sabotage, but we don't have independent confirmation. But it is a possibility because there are still, I think, small pockets of supporters. They're not going to show themselves, but they could be used in operations like this. It's not beyond belief. But, arms depots now are a target by Gaddafi's forces. We've seen that in the last few days. They've been trying to hit them because, of course, now, with this moving to something like an arms struggle, a lot of people on the move with weapons, they need ammunition.
Benghazi appears an oasis of calm there behind you compared to the reports that we're getting of fighting elsewhere in the country. I referred to it a moment or two ago as the seat of the uprising. Is there any sign that the opposition there, the protesters, are coherent enough to be able to coordinate with other people who are fighting government forces elsewhere in the country?
Difficult to get a handle on that also because it seems so confusing here at the moment. There are various committees. There's a defence committee, security committee, and there's all kinds of committees to get life back to normal here. But at the moment, all eyes are on the defence committee and what's happening. Is this force an organised force? Do they have the experience? Do they have the capability to take this on? I think you look back 2 weeks ago, they were very hopeful here that Gaddafi would leave because of the uprising. Then they were hopeful the international community could push him out. That hasn't worked. Now the pendulum has swung back their way. They believe that basically it's in their own hands. I think that's why we're seeing a new phase being entered to now, and they're pushing on. We've got information that they've gone beyond Ras Lanuf, which is this oil town. They've gone beyond that about 30 or 40 kilometres to a town called Bin Jawad. So they are taking this fight onwards. The next thing in front of them is the Gaddafi stronghold of Sirte, which is a different ball game entirely because that's very fortified. It's 4,000 pro-Gaddafi fighters who are well trained. But this seems to be escalating, not dying down.
All right, Tony, for the moment, many thanks. Let's bring in Jackie Rowland, who is not far away in AlJazeera, also in the east of the country. It looks like you're in a pretty well-stocked market there, Jackie. Of course, the concern now is that that part of the country being cut off by government forces could run short soon of the very basic of supplies, the most basic of supplies.
Well, right at the moment, people have not only basic supplies, but also luxury goods as well. This is the closest major town to the front line. There are about 100,000 people who live here, and as you can see, there's absolutely no shortage at the moment. The shelves are absolutely bulging with goods. I mean, you have basic goods, very important goods for people here, stuff like rice and pasta, and also cooking oil. But apart from that, you have things that you might not expect to find in a Libyan supermarket. Basically, in a fairly small town, you have international hygiene products, the kind of thing that you might see on a bathroom shelf in the West. and also for people with exquisite taste. You even have well-known brands of imported chocolate. So right now, Adrian, there isn't a problem, but that's for the time being, and clearly as and when this conflict progresses, then we might start to see quite a different scene on the shelves of supermarkets.
All right, Jackie, many thanks indeed. Jackie Rowland there in AlJazeera in the east of Libya. Now, while much of the oil industry is now in the hands of Libya's opposition, revenues from the sale of oil to Europe are still going directly to Tripoli. Let's get more on that from Felicity in our London News Centre. Felicity.
Adrian, thanks very much indeed. Yes, whereas America's sanctions prohibit money being paid to the Libyan central bank, those imposed by other countries don't. And critics say that means oil money is continuing to prop up the Gaddafi government. Rory Challens has more on that.
Oil. Libya has it. The rest of the world needs it. Under the hot, dry desert sands lies the source of 95% of the country's export earnings. As the Libyan government cracks down on protesters, the international community is trying to push Colonel Gaddafi's financial pressure points. But this British newspaper says the oil trade is still pumping millions of dollars into the country and potentially into the hands of Gaddafi's regime.
Is the money from the central bank being used for the good of Libya, for the citizens and for his economy, or is being used as the pocket money from the Gaddafi family to do whatever they are doing right now in Libya? That's a big question mark that no one can answer. But at the moment, the sanctions in Europe are only targeting individuals, so like the family of Muammar Gaddafi, and they are not targeting institutions such as the central bank.
The web of international sanctions brought down on the Libyan government has plenty of gaps in it. AlJazeera understands businesses from China, India and Austria are still buying Libyan oil completely legally. That's not to say the violence isn't hurting the government's pockets, though.
In the short term, the situation we have is that a lot of the foreign oil companies have pulled their staff out. These staff are essential for the operations that are taking place there. So while production is continuing just now at much reduced levels, in the long term, this is not sustainable.
Libya's oil fields, like the ones in the Sirte Basin, El Bouri and El Hamra, provide Colonel Gaddafi's regime with 80% of its revenue. In 2010, exports were about 1.3 million barrels a day. Last week, that had slumped to under 600,000 barrels a day, and it's still falling. But despite Libya's financial vulnerability, there's been little talk on the international stage of an oil embargo. With oil prices spiralling, there's not much desire for action which might push it higher, regardless of how many Libyan lives that oil money may cost. Rory Challens, AlJazeera.
Well, foreign oil workers and other expatriates are meanwhile continuing to leave Libya as various European countries evacuate their nationals. Malta, of course, has become a hub for countries which are trying to get their citizens out. Some 12,000 oil workers have already been evacuated by air and sea to the Mediterranean island before they continue their journey to their home countries. Well, many North Africans fleeing the unrest face a far more dangerous journey across the Mediterranean.